Hello, and thank you for joining us this month for Tiger Talk. Today I'm joined by Krista Biella, the Executive Director of Pride in the Tiger Foundation. So we're going to talk a bit about that later on. Before we get to that, I just have a few updates about what's going on in the district I want to share with everyone. I'll go through a few things from each building. First thing I want to share with everyone is we have a few openings still available, a few spots available in our Little Cubs preschool program for 23-24. We're offering many different options for students, so I encourage families with questions about preschool to give our school a call, or you can visit on the website, but we'll get you some information about that. You can register online, you can stop in the early childhood office, or you can call 507-929-2633 to reach our early childhood office about that. We also have some summer programming available for Little Cubs preschool programming. Registration opens on May 3rd for that, so I encourage you to check out the community services site to learn more about opportunities there. I have a few thank yous. Pride in the Tiger recently gave some donations to different the teacher impact grants out. So a few thank yous came through this month. I want to make sure to recognize. Parkside is really excited. They received some forward-facing book bins in the library, and they want to send a big thank you to Pride in the Tiger for that. They just help the library be more user-friendly for our littlest learners. They can see the faces of the books instead of just the spines of the books, something that is a different way to lay that out. They're pretty excited to offer that in the library at Parkside. Parkside's also excited. A lot of you might have heard about the LETRS training. You hear a lot about literacy right now with government legislation taking place. Marshall's been working on changes with literacy training or literacy education for some time. And this LETRS training, we've talked about it before in Tiger Talk. We have 11 different teachers at Parkside Elementary who are going through that intensive training, plus others across the district. Just want to call out a big thank you to all the teachers that are doing that and helping lead that path, lead that way for our students at all the learning levels. Also, kind of a fun project has been taking place in our schools just recently as we're starting to do those little end of the year, wrap up the year kind of things. We've had some partnership taking place between some elementary students and high school students together. So a big thank you to Mrs. Keeker, a third grade teacher, and Mrs. Kraus, a high school language arts teacher. They've been partnering on some projects through the language arts work. And on March 30th, Mrs. Kraus's kids from the high school went over to Southview Elementary. They got to meet the writing partners that they've had over this last semester. It's just a lot of fun for those kids from the big kids and little kids get together and talk about all the things that they're doing and kind of wrap up that project they've been working on this year. So that was a fun project for both the high schoolers and the elementary kids. I also want to say a big thank you to all of our Southview kids. They recently wrapped up their concerts. 3rd and 4th grade were one evening, and 2nd grade was a different evening. Our music teachers at Southview did a great job putting those concerts together. The kids were amazing on stage. They had a really nice show this spring, and all the Southview staff. It takes a lot of effort to organize all those little kids to put together a concert, and the kids sounded great. They looked really, really great on stage. The Parkside concert, they're actually practicing as we record right now today. Parkside concert's coming up too, and I'm sure that will be a good show as well. I want to call out a thank you to our 6th graders, Marshall Middle School 6th graders. They recently participated in the Marshall Noon Rotary essay, six-way writing test essay. They submitted essays through their classroom. They worked on them in class, submitted essays. The Noon Rotary group read through those essays and selected some winners. And then the winner of that gets passed on to like a regional award through Rotary Group. Congratulations. First place went to Charles Mueller Thompson, who wrote the winning essay. 2nd place went to Sabrine Khalif, and 3rd place to Maddie Doling. Congratulations to those students on your work with those essays. Also wanted to thank you from the student council at the middle school. They want to call out a big thank you to some sponsors that helped put together a dance. Our middle schoolers, just through COVID, we've had a lot of odd years going on. We didn't get to do some of these normal things. We had a middle school dance recently. I think they had to reschedule like 3 times because of the weather. It's snowed every time they're going to have this dance. They finally got the dance, and they had a great time. Kids could put together a nice the student council put together a really nice event for the students. Thank you to McDonald's, Jimmy John's, Subway, and Frankie's Hot Dogs. They were some sponsors that helped make that event extra special for the kids, and it was really well received. I want to call out state testing. It's that time of year again. We're testing all the kids. Krista's also a counselor, so she's familiar with testing and how that works. MCA testing is happening in full swing at all buildings. Right now, teachers are going to get preliminary results pretty much right away, so we'll have an idea how students did, but all that gets sent back to the state, and we have a few months. We won't get actual final results in these tests until fall. But those MCA tests, they're reading, math, and science at different grade levels, everywhere from 3rd grade through 11th grade. and it helps us just evaluate how we're doing as a system and look at some growth measures for our students in those grades and those different tests. So important testing happens statewide. Every student in the state of Minnesota is required to take these tests, working through all those processes. One thing I want to call special attention to with MCA testing is the high school is going to do things a little bit differently than we've done them in the past. What we found at the high school is with so many mixed classes, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders together in classes, when we're testing all the sophomores in a reading test, it disrupts schedules in multiple classrooms to pull those kids together. So different this year, we're going to run a delayed start schedule on May 2nd. So the classes don't start until 10 o'clock, but the students still come at 8 o'clock. In that first 2 hours, we have a dedicated block of time to give this MCA test to our sophomores and our juniors in reading and math. And we feel that will really help eliminate some of those disruptions to classrooms and be able to have a good testing environment for kids at the high school. So it's just the high school is going to look a little bit differently with that this year, and more information about that will come from the high school to families as we get really close to that date. I also want to say a thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for allowing some of our high school students to attend the monthly Young Professionals Luncheons. That started back in December. We had a grant that we were awarded to allow this to happen. So every month from December through May, 10 of our students from the high school who are part of select different classes, leadership classes, are attending that luncheon, just getting to connect with business leaders in town and learn more about our community. So that's been a nice event. Also at the high school coming up, we have prom. That's scheduled for Saturday, April 29th. That's going to be here very soon. As we speak right now, it's snowing outside again, so really hoping we get some nicer weather for prom.
Yes.
I've seen some of the prom dresses, and they're not really made for winter weather.
No.
So just looking forward to some nice weather there, and the kids are certainly anticipating a nice event. The high school staff has done a nice job putting this together. Grand March starts at 7 p.m. on April 29th, and then for the students, there's a lot of activities planned and food planned for the entire evening. We have about 300 students signed up for that night. So it'll be a lot of kids and a lot of excitement around prom this year again. At Maytech, they're really excited to say thank you to the Marshall PTA, our Maytech program, an alternative school program. They were in need of some additional equipment for their FIED, for their physical ed and rec space. They were able to purchase a portable basketball hoop, a volleyball net, a badminton set, and a spike ball game to have available to the Maytech students through the PTA grant. So thank you to PTA for that. I also want to say congratulations to a couple people. We had a couple head coach openings recently that we've filled. I want to say congratulations to Mr. Ethan Hoppy. He has been selected as our new head wrestling coach. Ethan's been an assistant coach for a number of years. For over 13 years, he's been part of that program, so he's going to do a great job stepping into the lead position with wrestling program. And congratulations to Brian Stuckey, who has been named the head girls swimming coach for next year. He's had over 10 years experience at swim at the club level. He's very well respected within that community, and we look forward to having him join us as a head coach for the swim team. Certainly, as we think about spring activities, I think your daughter plays softball. Mm-hmm. It has not been spring sport weather just yet. We've had the first couple baseball games and softball games, and it's kind of hit and miss if we can find a field dry enough to play on. So we're hoping that the weather turns around, our fields dry up, and we can get out and enjoy some spring activities prior to school year being over. But a lot of things, all spring things are started, and weather is going to have to turn around soon. Just a couple last minute things I want to invite community to. Our CEO program, we've talked about that a few times this year on Tiger Talk. CEO has been the Creating Entrepreneurial Opportunities program for high school students. They are wrapping up their year with a CEO trade show. That's where all the students in this program are going to get together. They're going to present their final businesses. They will be available to talk about what they learned, what business they put together, what they're selling, and they will have products and services available for purchase that evening. Encourage people to stop by and check this out. This has been an amazing program. Mm-hmm. Our coordinator, our students have done a great job with this. I really encourage people to stop by and check it out. I'm very proud of this program and all the work those students have done with that. That takes place on Wednesday, May 24th. It's going to be hosted at the True Shrimp Company in Ballatin from 5 until 7 that evening. So it's also going to be in conjunction with the Chamber Business After Hours, so a lot of things going on that evening. But anyone interested in learning more about that, stop by that evening. Again, May 24th at True Shrimp in Ballatin from 5 until 7, open house to come and see everything those students have done. Last announcement I have, or event that we have going on, is the American Indian Spring event for American Indian families is set for May 3rd. That's going to be in the high school cafeteria. There'll be a number of activities as well as American Indian resources, art history, and an indigenous meal that evening. So nice event from that group they're putting on. There's a lot of things going on in our district as we're wrapping up the school year. It's hard to
very
believe we're
busy
there,
time.
Krista.
Yes, it's a very busy time.
Yeah. So let's start. We're going to talk about Pride in the Tiger, but let's talk about you just a little bit. I don't think you've done Tiger Talk with me before.
I have not.
So a lot of our community probably is familiar with you, but some people aren't. Why don't you share just a little bit about your background, who you are, and how what your role is within the district?
Yes. Well, I have lived in Marshall for a very long time. I'm a graduate of SMSU, and I actually taught away from Marshall for a year and then moved back here, and I didn't work in education for a long time. I actually worked in the private sector in business. And then when I had young kids in the schools, decided it might be a great time to get back into the schools. And so that's when I went back to school to become a school counselor, and did that for many years in the district, working in almost every building. And then decided to take a little break, and this foundation position opened up, and I have always wanted to know more about it. But I love how it is making an impact on our schools in a little bit different way than maybe working in the school directly. So I've been doing that for 3 years, and have been working at the high school part-time for the last 2 years.
So your break didn't really end up becoming much of a break, but
I did take a 1-year break.
1 year there.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited to have you in this role. You're doing a great job in this role, and the Pride in the Tiger Foundation does a lot of great things for our schools and for our whole community, really. So let's just talk a little bit more about the foundation. Tell me, first of all, what is the mission of the Pride in the Tiger Foundation?
Yeah, so the formal mission is to provide financial and other support to activities and extraordinary educational programs supporting our children's personal growth and development in their pursuit of excellence. So in short, we provide opportunities for kids in our schools, all of our schools, public and private in Marshall.
Right, all schools in the district.
Yes.
What are some ways that the foundation specifically impacts our schools?
Well, we kind of have 2 main areas where we have a direct impact. The first being our teacher impact grants, and the other are scholarships that we give to our graduating Marshall High School students.
Right. And we're not talking a few scholarships or a few impact grants. This impact is huge. Talk specifically first about the impact grants. Like, how many requests might you get in a year?
You know, I would say in the last 3 to 4 years, we have a range of anywhere from 95 to 120 a year. So on average, probably about 100 a year requests that we get. And for the most part, we're able to fund most requests. We aren't always able to fund all of them.
Right. Depends on what there's some criteria around that.
Yep.
When you're looking to fund grants, like how many dollars are we talking? How many dollars might be funded in teacher impact grants each year?
Well, I would say on average we do about $70,000 to $90,000 a year, just depending on where things are at. You know, we are an endowment-based foundation, and so our money is some of it is invested, or large majority of it is invested, with the goal of gaining on that fund so that we can have a perpetual amount of money to give long term. And so we take a very conservative approach to that. And so depending on how the markets are doing, that kind of tells us what monies we have available to give. And so that's why there can be a range, and it can also be a range based on the requests that we get.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. When we're looking at grants, I'm assuming teachers don't just come anytime and ask for money. There's got to be some process to that. So when are those grants available for different teachers?
So we have 2 deadlines. The first deadline is October 1st, and then the second deadline is March 2nd or March 1st. So we have 2 grant cycles, the beginning of the year and then kind of towards the end of the year. And our hope is that they're kind of planning ahead for the next March, they might be making requests for the next fall.
Right.
So
And those time makes sense. We're starting the year and we're kind of starting to prep for the following year. So let's talk just a little bit about things that teachers might request, because there's a huge, that's a wide open question, could be lots of things. But the foundation's pretty particular about thinking about what really makes sense and what's the best use of these resources. People have donated money to the foundation. It's not just given away with no thought to it. There's a good process. There's a whole committee that looks at that. And even within the schools, as requests are made, there's thought given to what makes sense to ask for, because we're looking to enhance education that's already happening. So school provides we want to make sure we're meeting the standards and making sure that teachers have what they need in the classrooms. This is extra.
Yes.
So what kinds of things might that look like?
Oh gosh, there's so many things. We have a huge rubric that we look at when we review those grant applications. And we want to look at, does the request have longevity? Meaning, is it going to be something that's going to be used year over year? Does it affect a large number of students? Does the objective of the program that they're doing really support what the schools are trying to do? So we look at all of those things when we're reviewing the grant applications. And, we have requests everything from, it could be classroom library books. We do a lot of field trips, and we really like to pay for the students. Let's say they're going to go to the Children's Museum in Brookings. We like to pay their entry into the museum because we recognize that that's a very hands-on, enhanced educational experience. Tools for the CTI Center. It might be, I think we've funded LCD screens for a music classroom and any kind of supporting equipment that might be needed in the weight room, for instance, at the high school. We will fund some of the science kits that you might see that support the science lessons to make them more hands-on for students, so that it's, we recognize that students learn in many different ways and with many different senses, and so the more we can provide some of those hands-on kind of tools to enhance the learning that they're getting in the classroom, we love to fund those things. Crawfish, I think we've done those.
We have,
yeah. So there's just so many different things are looked at and considered, and I love the creativity that our educators bring forward in the classroom and the requests that we get, and they put so much time and energy in trying to make those experiences in the classroom even more enhanced and hands-on than just what we see in the textbooks.
Right. Oh, those are great examples. The field trips, I'll latch on that one for a second. Just thinking about, we can talk about it in a classroom and read a book about it, but to actually get kids out and hands-on and touch and see and feel. The Children's Museum is a great example.
Yes.
Something that we probably don't have in our budget for the school system. We don't have the money to do that. But to be able to bring the kids and add that, those experiences are amazing. Those are the things kids are going to remember for years to come after high school. So certainly very appreciative of the Pride in the Tiger Foundation to be able to support that. And as donors think about, what is my money going to, it's nice to know this is what we're doing with it. I know part of that, when teachers receive grants, they're asked to make sure they share that information so we can see, and donors can see, where did that money go. So I know there's a nice Facebook page and there's website updates and ways for people to follow up on that and see what's happening.
Yeah, I encourage people to follow the foundation on social media. People can say what they want about social media, but it has been a great way for us to share our story and to share all the great things that are being done here in our schools in Marshall.
Absolutely. And I think another thing that's important to think about is that's for all students in town. It's not just the public schools. The private schools are part of all of that too.
Yes.
So.
Yep. Our private schools receive grant money as well.
Yeah, great. So scholarships was the other thing you talked about. That's a huge impact too.
Yes.
We've got 200 kids about every spring that are leaving our doors. And Pride in the Tiger isn't just about supporting kids when they're in school. This is about helping them. Our whole mission in the school district is preparing all learners for success after school.
Yes.
So Pride in the Tiger plays a big role in that when we come to scholarships. How many scholarships are facilitated by the Pride in the Tiger Foundation every year?
Yeah, so I have to review my numbers. We have 88 named scholarships. So there's 88 individual named scholarships that are given out each year, but within those named scholarships, we might have multiple gifts that are given to students within that. So I'll use the example of the Carr Family Foundation. The Carrs are very generous in Marshall and have done many great things for our community, and they actually provide 9 scholarships a year. So even though that's one named scholarship, there's actually 9 scholarships given under the Carr Family Foundation name. So in total, we actually give out close to 150 scholarships, individual scholarships a year. Yeah.
Right, which is amazing when you look at our students. And this isn't just the school stands at the door and says, oh, you get this, and you get this. There's a big process behind this. I think you told me the other day it was like 5 or 6 hours you guys met just looking at scholarship applications.
Yes. So students apply. And I would say our seniors started applying the end of February, and I think we gave them like 3 weeks to complete the application. And it's not super lengthy, but it does ask them to provide some information about them as a student, things they've been involved in, maybe if they work outside of school or they're involved in school. And we do ask them to provide some information about kind of why they feel they're a good leader in our school, or what things they've done to help make our school a better place. And those applications are all reviewed. Our scholarships are mainly academic based, and so we do review, their grade point average and things like that do play a role in the scholarships. And many of our scholarships, we are the facilitators of the scholarship. We just want to honor what the donors are asking of us in terms of giving out those dollars. And so we have to follow what the donors say. And so some scholarships have very specific requirements in terms of they have to be in the top 10% of the class or the top half of the class, or there's a variety of things. And so it's kind of like a big puzzle to figure out which students fit which scholarship requirements. And our goal is to give out all of the scholarships, but to as many students as possible as well. But there are times that a student just fits multiple scholarships, and so that does happen as well. But yes, it's a very long process. A large committee meets I think we spent about 5 hours reviewing all the scholarships and looking at all the criteria and determining, which scholarships go where. I'm just a facilitator of that conversation. There I play the role as the Pride in the Tiger executive director, not as the school counselor. So, yeah.
I think that's important to think about that too, is as we really want to match up what the donor wanted to happen with this, because these are huge for that. We want to make sure we're honoring that and making sure we're matching up the kids. So this isn't you throwing a dart at which kid gets what. It's looking very intentionally at each kid, and who better to do that than the teachers that have worked very closely with them over the past 4 years in high school. So staff that knows the students very well can look at the scholarship criteria and help match this student's a great fit for that one. And every year there are some, my understanding is, that don't get matched just because we don't have a student necessarily that meets all the criteria for some.
Yes, that is correct. And it's unfortunate, and we wish we could give a scholarship to every student that applies, but sometimes they just don't meet the criteria of the scholarships that we have available. So the teachers work very, very hard. And, we have some rules around the committee itself. If you have a student graduating, you cannot be on the committee. Next year, I will have a student graduating, so I will not be part of the process next year. I won't be involved other than, getting things organized. But outside of that, I won't be a part of that. And so we kind of have a little rotation with a few of us that, have students in the high school. And so we're not part of that process when you have a graduating senior. So, and I think that's good. I think it makes it a good,
fair process.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know you talked earlier about the endowment process and how it's important that we're following whatever the market does, kind of allows what we can give. But talk a little bit about how many dollars we're talking with scholarships for Marshall students, because this number is amazing.
It is amazing, and it's fluctuated a little bit over the last 3 years, but I think this year we have close to like $173,000 to give out.
I get goosebumps when you say that number. 150 kids getting $170,000.
It's amazing. It's an amazing amount of scholarships and such an amazing dollar amount to be able to give out. And that's a little bit lower than maybe the past couple years because of where the markets have been, but it's still a very impressive number, I think.
Right, it's a great number. There's a lot of donors that make that happen. And you're right, the markets have not been up this year, but the money is well invested and it's watched very closely, and you're cautious to make sure that we can continue this on for years to come. So. So all those scholarships are awarded at one big event every year. It used to be a little different than it is currently. So let's talk a little bit about that scholarship event and when it is.
So the scholarship ceremony is on May 17th at 7 o'clock at Marshall High School. And in the past, this event was held at SMSU in the conference center, and it was a full banquet. And so we offered a meal, and the foundation would pay for the students' meals, and then parents could buy tickets to attend. When COVID happened, we had to kind of change things up a little bit. And so that would have been 2 years ago. We decided to hold the event in the gym and make it a little bit shorter event without the full meal, invite families to come, and then we offered a kind of grab-and-go dessert afterwards. And the feedback that we got from all the families and students was phenomenal, and so we've just continued to do it in that way. And so students are allowed to bring, multiple people to the event versus having families have to buy tickets, which is very nice, so that we don't feel like anyone's not coming because maybe they can't afford a meal ticket. And it's held in the gym, and our custodial staff does such a nice job of setting it up and making it just look so nice. And usually it takes about 2 hours, and we get through all of that. And what I love the most is the teachers that take the time to prepare kind of the words about the students who are receiving the scholarships, put so much care into it and just make it so personal. So it's a really nice event, and it will also be broadcast live on Studio One.
Which is nice for family members that maybe are coming for graduation but can't come a couple weeks before as well, to still be able to be part of all of that for kids.
Absolutely.
So, and I like the idea of, you think it's a 2-hour event. We want to make sure we're honoring the scholarships, or the students receiving the scholarships, and the donors that made this happen, because this is a big deal. 2 hours is a long time for that event, and you had a full banquet on top of it, and that got to be a long evening.
Yes, it
and
did.
Getting people to commit to that's difficult too. So I like the balance you found with that.
Yeah.
It really has been a nice event the last couple of years.
And we've had donors come, and they do enjoy the event as well. And it was interesting to talk to families who've never been and they loved it, and then talk to families who'd maybe been to the banquet and the new way we're doing it in the gym, and resoundingly they said they liked the shorter banquet at the high school, which is It's just a fun, it's kind of like a little practice before graduation. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And it's fun. The video board in the gym, those that have been there, the video board was a gift from Pride in the Tiger to the school
Yes.
district. So we get to use that then for the banquet as well, because we can have the pictures of the kids, and
Yes.
which are always fun to see their senior pictures
It
as well.
is,
So,
yes. And I always love it because you can watch, and everyone's always maybe not taking a photo of their child up front, they're taking a picture of the video board that
Right.
has their picture on it, which is kind of fun.
Right.
So, yeah.
It is fun to see that. So great. So you mentioned earlier you've been the executive director for about 3 years.
This is my third year,
Right.
yes.
I think we started about the same time. So executive director for 3 years with Pride in the Tiger. What's something that surprised you about this position? You said you always knew the position existed, but
Yeah.
wanted to learn more about it.
Well, I just think the foundation in general, I had no idea the impact that the foundation had. I mean, I've worked in the district for, nearly 15 years, and I always knew it was there, but I knew they gave scholarships, and I'd received a grant as an educator in the past, but I had no idea the size and scope of what the foundation does for our community before, nor did I know how our local businesses support this foundation and our schools in such a way.
Such a big way.
Yeah.
When you say that, one of the things we haven't talked about yet, you're the executive director, but this isn't just you. So Pride in the Tiger, there's a whole board. Can you talk
Yes.
just? I won't ask you to name everyone because that's. I think we put you on the spot the other night at the board meeting, asked you to do that. But talk a little bit about what that board looks like and what
Oh.
their role is.
Well, and that is so important. I'm here talking to you about the foundation, but this foundation wouldn't be possible without all the volunteer board members that have been a part. And we have some that have been a part of the foundation really since it began in 1999, and who know all the history and all of kind of where it came from and what was the start of it. And then we have others that are new, and it's a wide variety of business professionals, people who've had children in our district who've maybe graduated or who have children in our district now, but number one, they all have a huge passion for supporting our schools and the education of our kids.
Right. Very supportive group of people making very important decisions
Oh, yes.
around all these things.
Yes.
I know we're running low on time, so let's just talk a little bit about some other events coming up. Pride in the Tiger does one big fundraiser every
Yes.
year that's going to come up, I'm going to say soon, because
Yes.
summer's coming.
Yes, summer's
talk
coming,
a little bit
and
about that.
the golf course will eventually open.
Right.
Poor people over there. July 10th, we have our annual golf classic. We usually have about 100 golfers. It's a big fundraising event for us, and we also sell raffle tickets in conjunction with that. All the money goes to teacher impact grants.
Right, that's great. And the board certainly plays a big role in all of that
Yes.
happening. And yeah, if people are watching today and they think, boy, I'd like to know a little bit more about that, or maybe I'd like to make a donation, or maybe I'd like to just find out more about
Yeah.
anything that we talked about today, what should they do?
Well, they can search Pride in the Tiger Foundation on Facebook or Instagram, or go to our website, prideinthetiger.org.
Sure. And if they wanted to call and talk to you,
They can call Marshall High School and ask for Pride in the Tiger office or Krista Biella.
there you go. Great. Well, Krista, thank you so much for
Thank you.
joining me today. Great conversation, a great program.
Yes.
Very thankful for all that you and the Pride in the Tiger Board does for our schools and for our entire community.
Thank
This
you.
is very important work that I think you're right. A lot of people know it's maybe there, but don't really understand everything that goes behind it. Maybe they know parts, little bits of it, the little
Yes.
piece they've interacted with, but it's a much bigger piece than what I think a lot of people realize. So
Yeah.
appreciate
Thank
all
you.
that. And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next month.